In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Eric.
And I'm David, and welcome back to our new discussion in the lobby. This week we're rejoined again by Collin Garbarino. We had a part one to this discussion a little while back, but there was some sort of technical issues, and then there was a lot more to say. And so we were thrilled to have you back. Collin, you're the arts and culture editor of World News Group. I listen to you almost every week on the World and Everything in It podcast, and so little starstruck here. Collin, welcome to the lobby.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here.
Yes, welcome back, Collin. And if you listened to the last episode, we did talk a lot about remakes. So, this is not a remake. This is not going to be a shot for shot of part one. This is a true sequel. We're going to try not to talk about kids' films at all, unless it's.
I can't promise
you know?
that.
Yeah. We can't promise that. Yeah, Collin, thank you for coming back. At the end of our last discussion, we actually were literally about to transition from, hey, how you got your start, reviewing kids' films. We talked about kids' films a lot. So to jump right into it, what's your actual favorite films?
My actual...
or at least type of film, yeah.
Yeah.
I can answer both those questions. My favorite film... this has shifted. I realized recently that this has shifted. If you asked me 30 years ago what my favorite film was, it was a Merchant Ivory film called A Room with a View. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I have not seen it. I've heard of it, though.
Daniel Day-Lewis, Julian Sands, Helena Bonham Carter. Loved that movie, mostly because I was a quirky teenager and it was a quirky movie. But my favorite film now is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Good choice.
The George Clooney telling of the story of Odysseus. That movie is I find it to be hilarious. I often say the line "Is you is or is you ain't my constituency." The resetting the story of Odysseus into the South during the Depression, I've thought was a stroke of genius. Just the way the elements line up, and then whenever I found out that the Coen brothers claimed that they'd never actually read the Odyssey,
they'll go chasing waterfalls. If anyone that gets that reference,
they claim everything they knew about the Odyssey they got from a children's graphic novel about the story. I was like, well, I mean, did a pretty good job with it. So.
So Wishbone, had a great episode.
If they just watched the Wishbone episode, they should have been good to go.
But
R.I.P. Wishbone, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I liked about the movie was the way, which I thought it was interesting because I felt like the movie has, for being based on pagan mythology and being made by a couple of Jewish guys, I thought the movie had a surprising amount of kind of Christian imagery in it. Not so much the fact that there is I think there's a strong case to be made. It says George Clooney's character is a kind of Jesus figure in that I don't think it's a coincidence that he's always anointing his head with that Dapper Dan's, right? So
we're in a tight spot, yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that he's a Dapper Dan man, always anointing, continually anointing his own head throughout the movie kind of makes him out to be a little bit of a Messiah figure, which I think could be sort of consistent with a Jewish flavor on this story. But the lawman who's chasing him down is much more Satan than anything you see in Greek mythology anywhere. And I just thought that was an interesting addition to the myth, and I felt like it helped the story out quite a bit. So that is my favorite movie of all time.
That's a great one. I love that. You mentioned the man chasing him. It kind of harkens back, I think, to the man with no eyes from Cool Hand Luke, who's a pretty similar character. Never takes the glasses off. He's the bad guy that you're like, that guy might be the devil. Like, he doesn't seem
which
like
also has some Christian imagery in it. Cool Hand Luke. So and of course the music in Oh Brother Where Art Thou is top notch. So
and we get a Judas Iscariot hog wallop, right? And we get the iconic scriptural fool in Delmar, and arguably in Pete as well. Yeah, that's a fantastic. I think we covered that once, but it's a due for a re-review. So.
Yeah, that scene where I think it's Delmar says, is it Delmar who says, wants to know why they're still being chased. He just got baptized, and the pastor said all of his sins have been washed away. I'm like, that's a topic due for discussion, right?
Yeah.
Like the difference between being forgiven and still experiencing consequences. Mm-hmm. And I just think that there's a lot of moments like that in the movie where you could just stop it and unpack what these characters are saying to each other and have a discussion about how life actually works.
Yeah. Yep. But no, it's fun. Right before we recorded, we were talking about, I mentioned Tom Holland's book, not the actor, the historian. Called
the other Tom Holland.
Yeah, the other Tom Holland. His
Tom
book
Holland
called
at Home.
Yeah, Dominion, where he Tom Holland at Home.
Close to home.
Where he lays out I listened to the audiobook. It's a 22-hour long audiobook. He from pre-Christian all the way to yesterday. He lays out the history of Christianity and how it has irrevocably shaped the West in every single way, every single aspect. That you will have two Jewish movie makers adapting a pre-Christian Greek movie, and they cannot help themselves but putting Christian themes. And it's just how it works. If you don't want to listen to the 22-hour long podcast, you can get an abbreviated version called The Air We Breathe by Glen, who basically took a lot of Tom Holland stuff and condensed it down to a very general thing. But Air We Breathe, very Christian book, very much making the case for Christianity. Dominion, making the case for Christianity from a secular position of basically saying, hey, the secular experiment relies 100% on Christianity. So basically very Nietzschean. Hey, before we throw the baby out with the bathwater, maybe we should actually come up with some of our own ideas. So anyway, it's just kind of fun. And talking about the baptism part, obviously the movie's making fun of it, basically, in a way. It's like, oh, look how naive these guys are. Well, what does the gospel tell us? That it's foolishness it's foolishness. The gospel is foolishness. That, you do have this naivety of going, well, God's forgiven me, so why has not the lawman forgiven me? And then the lawman in that movie actually becomes the accuser, because don't they get pardoned? And then he's like, no, I'm still going to punish you.
Yeah. Then he ain't got no radio.
And that is Satan's position. He is the accuser.
And then at the end, they experience this kind of ultimate baptism, right? That actually does kind of wash things away and give them a fresh start. So, so I think I used to make when I was a university instructor, I used to make the students watch that whenever we would, in my ancient Greek class. I'm like, okay, let's take this myth, let's read it. Right now, let's see how it's still being retold and reshaped, and kind of looking at, like you said, the fact that since Christianity is ascendant, the myth can't stay the same, right? Yeah. These things get bent around the life, death, and resurrection of Christ.
Yep. Yeah. So in the world of film criticism, what's it like being like in that overall world, and then especially like as a Christian engaging in that space?
I think, well, there's two aspects of this, and trying to think of which one is to address first.
Is it the bad news, good news kind of situation?
No, it's just it just might not be what you think. For the most part, so I'm a member of. So when I first started doing this, it took me a little while to get access to early screeners and things like that. And I was wondering if some of that might have to do with, well, I'm writing for this Christian magazine. Are some of these publicity companies reluctant to take on a film critic who they think might be biased in one way or another? And I come to the conclusion that no, it was just hard to get access. Like this is not necessarily, it's not always easy depending on who you're trying to get on the phone to get on the lists. Okay. And in fact, the last list that I got on was like the company that handles Disney. That was the hardest one to crack. And then, but once I finally got through and had a conversation with the people, it took me almost a year. Wow. They were very open, generous, kind. One of them actually said, "Oh, I know your magazine. I like it." So I think some of the critics that I know in the city where I am, I'm part of the Houston Film Critics Society. I think some of them are antagonistic to my worldview, but we don't ever like talk about it. It's not like it comes up whenever we're discussing things. Mostly things stay on the films. I'm also a member of the Critics' Choice Association. So it's, I guess, probably the biggest critics association in America, and didn't have any questions or pushbacks or anything about political stances or religious stances or anything of that nature. Which has, in some ways, I think would surprise some people, that Hollywood being as kind of progressive leaning as it is, I haven't really run into a lot of people caring about my positions.
The film criticism world is not being gatekept as much as, basically what you're saying is not being gatekept as much as most Christians seem to portray it as.
Right. I don't think it's being, I don't really think it's being gatekept. I think what the gatekeeping is, it is hard to get into because you have to prove yourself before you can kind of get into it. On the other hand, the reactions I get from Christian publicists and Christian studios is curious in some ways, because they feel like, since I am a Christian and I write for a Christian magazine, and they are Christian publicists working for a Christian film studio or something like this, that we're on the same team, and I owe them one.
Okay.
Right? So they're the most aggressive about trying to get me to interview talent, whether, I don't do a lot of interviews with talent. I'm not a film journalist. I'm a critic. And so I don't really enjoy interviewing talent, and I also feel like it could bias the criticism. I know other critics who do both, and they don't mind it, but that's just not something I necessarily want to do. But also, they are very, like, the Christian publicists and studios expect that I'm going to give whatever they produce, no matter the quality, a gold star rating. Like, because it's clean, because it's got the right worldview, right? Those are the things you should be judging it on. So you need to, like, A+, you need to kind of rubber stamp. They expect me to be like the rubber stamp for what they're doing because we're on the same team. And I find that attitude off-putting. I still like a lot of these publicists that I work with, but it is a little bit difficult because none of the secular publicists expect me to give a certain, consideration for their film. Like, but everyone on the Christian side of things assumes, oh, you're going to love this, and we really want you to promote it because we need more of this kind of entertainment in America right now because, America's going to hell. We need more of this kind of good entertainment in America. And I'm like, well, how about I be the judge of that? Right. Like, why don't like That's what I'm getting paid to do, to tell people whether or not we need more of this. And oftentimes we don't need more of it. Oftentimes it's, I would argue that faith-based movies have gotten considerably better over the last 5 to 10 years. However, there are still, that doesn't mean all of them across the board are worth watching. So that's kind of the strange experience of being a Christian film critic. That's probably not what you expected me to say.
Yeah,
but it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I mean, because that's how I've heard so many lay people talk about Christian films. They're like, they already have decided that they like it before seeing it.
Yes,
because it is properly aligned. And I guess at times I'm like, well, you're treating it more like a sermon than like a piece of art.
Yes,
and that's not the place of film, despite us being popcorn theology. I think that we need to have proper distinctions between those. And sometimes, I mean, to be completely frank, they're not good sermons either.
No, that's true. There was a string of films that I reviewed early last year, maybe late 2023, but they all sort of had the same flaw in that the core of the quote unquote sermon was that once you have proper faith and give your life to Jesus, then your material world is going to be better, right? That's going to solve your whatever physical crisis you're going through. And it's also going to help your relationship out with your wife. And the Bible doesn't actually promise those things, right? The Bible doesn't promise, hey, if you embrace the gospel, if you understand who Jesus is and that he died for you, it doesn't promise that you're going to have a good relationship with your wife. You might have a good relationship with your wife after that because you have changed, but you might not because maybe she hasn't. So I find that there's a strain of even some of the ones where the production values have gotten better. There's this kind of strain of prosperity gospel that flows through a lot of Christian movies. And it's an inherent problem because how do you depict visually? This is the problem with film and Christianity. How do you depict visually in a movie that's overtly Christian a change that is invisible?
Yeah.
Right. And this is why I think it's better to make a Christian film that is not overtly Christian, in which the themes think of it more along the lines of metaphor, because then you're not making promises that if you pray this or if you have this much faith, then you will get this kind of outcome. Right. I used to joke the most Christian film would be somebody is going through a tough time, their faith is strengthened, and then at the end they're martyred. That would be,
make a modern make a modern retelling of the Apostle Paul's life, and was like do the oh brother where art thou treatment to the Apostle Paul. Don't let anyone know who it is until the end of the movie. I was like, wait, he got martyred?
Yeah, and I think
that's not the ending I expected.
Yeah, but the problem is that our churches would not pay money to go see that in America.
But
so
it's not everyone else.
It's not a feel-good inspirational movie. So
A24 to make it somehow, like I think there's a way to do it.
I would love to
Martin
give
Scorsese was an okay, like, we could quibble over aspects of it, but it showed the reality of martyrdom. I at least appreciated that. It was not a feel-good movie.
And when he made that, he said he was kind of making it from a place of his own faith. So I think Martin Scorsese's faith is probably very different from mine. We come back from very different religious backgrounds, and we've had very different life experiences. But I did think it was interesting that he said that movie was kind of made as a exercise in faith for him.
I would love to give like first and second Kings to the showrunners who did the first 3 seasons of Daredevil, and make I don't care if you modernize it or put it in ancient. I don't care. Just go do what you did to season 1 through 3 of Daredevil, except for second half of season 2. It's like you can throw that part away. Don't pay attention to that part. Just run, just do it. I would love to do that. But to what you were just talking about, so one of the questions that I actually had for you is not necessarily Christian film critics, but Christians in general. what do we get wrong, or where do we go wrong with film criticism in general, or just media literacy and analysis? Like where do we go wrong a lot of times?
I was actually thinking about this recently. There's an article that I read in Puck. I don't know if y'all heard of Puck. It's a kind of a media. I mean, it's news, but it's very like Hollywood, tech, Washington focused, kind of where they intersect. They had an article recently about the problems with Rotten Tomatoes, basically. And it's kind of highlights the challenge of criticism right now. Newspapers are letting their critics go, not replacing them when they retire. Criticism has been kind of offloaded to what we call the influencer class. And so a lot of the Rotten Tomatoes is, for better or worse, the default place people go to say, well, is this movie good or not? Yeah. Right? If it's got a little red icon, it's probably pretty good. If it's got a little green icon, oh, it's not good. And that binary choice that the critics have to make of, fresh or rotten is a lot of us don't like making that binary choice because because what we really need is we need kind of like Siskel and Ebert. I had this suspicion that they were thumbs up or thumbs down, right? I had a suspicion that they got together ahead of time and they said, well, this movie's kind of in the mid. I'll take the thumbs up this week. You take the thumbs down, and we'll argue. They both probably felt about the same way about it, but they argued either way. With Rotten Tomatoes, we don't have the opportunity to get together ahead of time and decide, well, how many of us are going to give it a thumbs up? How many of us are going to give it a thumbs down? It just kind of, if the movie as a whole is, it's 75% good, it could end up with a 95% rating because everybody's just like, it's better. It's better than not. So, and I was thinking about this week whenever I was doing my review for the new Office spinoff, The Paper. I was like, I mean, it's not.
It's a glowing endorsement, Collin.
I gave it a thumbs up. There should be a
middle option on the tomato side. It's just
like a little shriveled tomato, not quite, not quite fresh, not quite rotten. Sun-dried. And the Office spinoff would have been sun-dried.
Yeah.
So, but I gave it a thumbs up because I was like, it's better than not. It's got some. It is not going to change television like The Office did. But it is.
In fairness, season 1 didn't of The Office either.
Right. But the problem with Rotten Tomatoes is you've got this binary choice, and then the problem is exacerbated because the Rotten Tomatoes keeps bringing in more of what we would call the influencer class, right? Who are not really trying to be critical of a film. They're not trying to assess its merits. Their job is unspoken job is to promote the film. Because what they do is they trade a good review for access. Yeah. Okay. And access gets them more views, more clicks, more revenue.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing the super fans, quote unquote, that Amazon trotted out for the Rings of Power, and I'm like, you guys don't know anything about film criticism or the Lord of the Rings or Tolkien or anything, but here they were, super fans. I'm like, you guys are 10 years old. I was like, you weren't even alive when the original ones came out. How can you be super fans?
Yeah, so I mean,
but yeah, it's like they traded their influence for access to Amazon after they fired the Tolkien skull.
Yeah, exactly. So I have the luxury of being paid the same amount, no matter if I give a review good or bad ratings, right? But these influencers whose livelihood rests upon how many views they get, they need to continually kind of keep that flywheel of access running. They need to do those interviews with talent. Okay, they need to make sure they're getting into the early screenings, and if they start trashing things, then the studios don't have any problem not inviting them to things. Yeah, as long as they know they're going to get the positive interview followed by the positive review, which then that leads to the next next interview, and the next review, and so on and so forth. And so if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, the earliest for many big event kind of films and things like that, the earliest reviews are usually always very positive, because the studio is making sure that they're getting they know who these people are, and they're getting them access early. And it's a little frustrating for some of the critics I know, because we see some influencers who are getting access to things that the studios won't even give us access to, because the studio knows that, we're not going to, regular critics aren't going to like it. And so they just won't invite us to some things every now and then. I mean, there's a few guys I know, some of them are nice guys, but there's a few guys I know who have never once said a bad thing about a movie on their channels. Everything is like, this is must see. This is so hot. This is,
biggest screen possible. Stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd imagine it'd start to become like diminishing returns, because like if eventually like you keep saying, oh, Colin's like, oh, this is a great movie. This is a great movie. And I see 4 in a row and I'm like, that was really not good. Eventually I'm just going to stop listening to Colin. Right. I would think that would eventually happen.
Well, I think there might be some churn in the audience, but the goal is to always hit new people. I think the growth of the audience kind of helps with the churn some, and the gold star that helps with all this is getting those interviews with the big name actors. Like if you can sit down across from Brad Pitt, right, which I know some of these guys have, for one of these movies that he's, like F1 or something like that, then you're going to get a lot of eyeballs on your stuff.
Yeah.
Many of these people have discovered that the best way to ensure that you can get to sit down across from Brad Pitt is to make sure that you never say anything negative about a movie. And don't ask hard questions, right? Because actors don't like to answer hard questions. So that's kind of that's the state of criticism, I think, in America right now. I think you have to find those trusted voices that you can kind of return back to, kind of like you said, and I think that's what people who are interested in criticism are doing. But the overall industry is focused on like hitting as many eyeballs as possible to get those views to justify the next project. So like in some ways, Rotten Tomatoes is owned by film studios, right? So the Rotten Tomatoes version of criticism is geared towards, boosting box office profits. It's not geared towards giving people an informed choice.
No, that makes sense. So since we're on kind of the topic of like the secret sauce, the formula and stuff, is there anything you change differently when it comes to like, say, criticism of a comedy versus drama? Or one of our patron saints had the question around horror, like the horror films. Like, do you change your formula up a little bit more, where it's like, yeah, comedy, I don't expect it to have a fantastic story. I'm here to laugh, right? But like, tell me, do you change it up at all?
I judge a movie based on, so maybe this comes from my college professor background, but I judge a movie based on whether or not it filled the assignment.
Okay. Is
this movie accomplishing what it set out to do in a way that is competent and delightful? And sometimes movies just fail. They set out to do something that's too ambitious, and they never are able to actually quite pull it off. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head right now, but I mean there are many of them, but I can't think of one to call out recently. But this is one of the things that, like with K-pop Demon Hunters, I was like, this movie fulfilled the assignment. Competently. The songs are great, probably with excellence, and as most tweens and teenage girls in America can testify to, they were delighted.
Yeah.
So and that's going to be different for different genres. So with comedy, I don't expect the true to lifeness that you would necessarily expect in a serious drama. In a superhero movie, I certainly don't expect any true to lifeness, although I do still, with all of these movies, I do think within the movie there needs to be a logical consistency.
Yeah.
Does it make sense within the world that the movie's telling you about? Yeah.
Right. I don't want to be pulled out of the movie by thinking, oh, it shouldn't work like that. You know, whether it's a comedy or a drama.
Or if you're a paleontologist watching a dinosaur movie.
Or watching,
come on.
Oh my gosh.
I am okay. Yeah. I am okay with Jurassic Park movies as long as they don't break their own rules. Right.
Yes.
Oh, and they do.
And they do sometimes.
Oh yeah. They're great, but they break some of them are great, but
I have to feel like in comedy, this rule can be suspended, but I have to feel like the people are making choices that a rational person would make in any given, well, maybe not even rational person, just a non-crazy person would make in any given situation. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That, for me, that was where the latest Jurassic Park movie violated it. I mean, there were none of the choices any of the people made in the entire movie made any sense whatsoever. But in a comedy, I can kind of suspend that rule a little bit because sometimes we get ourselves into very comedic situations because we made very, poor choices where, it wasn't just a bad idea, but it was like, where did that idea come from? I think we all have one story where we're like, I did this thing and I have no idea why I did that.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of that's the thing that comedies thrive on. And so it's a little bit of a different situation there. Horror is, I think, the tricky one for a lot of people. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but horror fans are the most critical fans of all genres. If you go on CinemaScore and look at the audience ratings for various movies, CinemaScore takes the ratings for movies from the opening weekends. Okay. And usually if you're going to go see a movie on an opening weekend, you're kind of a fan, right? That's your thing.
Yeah.
Horror movies tend to be an entire letter grade lower on average than all other movies, just because the fans who go see them they're rabid fans, but they also have very high standards. And horror movies are usually made for on shoestring budgets, and because they don't have to. The production quality isn't necessarily out of this world.
That's how they can release in a January and still actually turn a modest profit.
Right. It is the most profitable genre. It's the most profitable genre as a whole. I think actually Christian movies technically might be the most profitable genre.
Yeah,
because they are also made on a shoestring budget as a general rule, and they tend to do really, really well that first weekend with kind of the hype, the people who are going to go see them, and then they're kind of done, sold off to streaming or whatever. But yeah, so the horror genre has high expectations from its fans. And I know kind of what those expectations are. And I will go see and occasionally review horror movies, but I am not a fan. And so I don't necessarily enjoy them. I don't like slasher movies at all. Yeah. I don't really like demonic possession movies. Although you could make the case that's one of those kinds of movies are more Christian than most other movies because they show that there is an evil and that evil needs to be defeated. It's one of the last places, one of the last bastions of a clear divide between good and evil in Hollywood.
Rarely are they trying to redeem Mike Myers or
right, exactly.
Jason Voorhees.
You need to cast that demon out. You need to see the serial killer dropped in the wood chipper at the end. Something bad needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's personally the genre I struggle with the most as far as critiquing, because and when I write a review of those films, I have to go in saying, does this film competently fulfill the expectations set by the genre? Because it's very unlikely to delight me, because that's not my personal favorite genre. However, this brings us up to a question we talked about before we even got on air. Curiously enough, my personal favorite genre is dystopian sci-fi. And one of my favorite movies in that genre is Alien. which it really is a horror movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe I do have a little bit of a liking for a little more of a liking for horror than I sometimes admit. I don't know, but
Well, it's
I guess
interesting.
I was going to say that the part of the additional question was one is like you kind of already gave your thoughts on horror as a storytelling medium, and so like you said, it's like in some cases it actually can tell a better Christian story or one at least talking about good and evil than others. So that's kind of somewhat answers the question on that storytelling medium. But any other films besides Alien that you actually would recommend in that genre?
In horror,
In the horror genre, yeah.
one film that I would recommend was the first Megan movie. I thought that
Mithrigan? I haven't yet. I have it, yeah.
I actually found that one to be delightful in a strange kind of way. It's horror light, so it is a horror movie, but it's only it's rated PG-13.
Yeah.
So it is not it is not gory and doesn't overdo things. Although people die. Trying to think if there's anything else in the genre that I really think was nothing else is really coming to mind. Although it's
Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That's a great one. Cabin in the Woods, another fantastic one. As I say, I like horror comedy.
I saw Cabin in the Woods. I felt like the messaging was a little too mixed.
Yeah, absolutely.
To give it an A+. I was like, I don't think the filmmakers are exactly sure where they're going with this. Yeah. I also saw Drop this year. Have y'all heard of that one?
I haven't heard of that one.
It's kind of Hitchcockian.
Okay.
It's more like highly ratcheted suspense than straight up horror, but it kind of gives the same vibe. I thought that done pretty well. The end was kind of goes in a different direction than what you were expecting, but I thought overall the movie was good. I think it's just one of those things where I think people who know that they like the genre like it, and if you don't, you don't.
Yeah, was
fair enough,
you're right about the being very big critics. I was at a brewery a couple months ago, actually probably a year ago, and there was a guy wearing a shirt that said "Make horror great again." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" And he went on for like about 10 minutes about like how almost no horror is R-rated anymore, and yeah, it was like he was very passionate about his favorite genre. So he wasn't just going to give it a pass because there's more movies being made. He was like, no, I still want good horror. And to him, that meant a little bit more of the R-rated. And he liked the Terrifier ones, which I have no interest in seeing any of the Terrifier films. Yeah.
Another horror movie that actually I enjoyed quite a bit last year was the vampire movie Abigail.
Yeah.
I know the premise. The premise is like I've seen the premise, and people are like, "Hey, what if they made a movie about this?" It's like, yes, this is called Abigail.
Yeah,
they just did.
A child vampire who basically slaughters a bunch of like bad guys.
Yeah,
it was
kidnappers. Yeah,
it was well done. It was smart. I do have a soft place in my heart for vampire movies, so I don't do normal slashers, but if it's a vampire doing the slashing, then I'm okay with it. Kind of, I think that comes from having watched Lost Boys,
Oh yes,
back whenever I was an early teenager or something like that.
Incredible movie. Incredible.
So
I think we've covered that, haven't we, David? I think someone.
Oh
did.
yeah. So I was going to mention all this talk of the very harsh critics of horror. That really does remind me of our kind of go-to horror correspondent, Joe Thorne. Joe Thorne loves horror movies, but man, he also hates a lot of horror movies. He's a very straightforward, he's a straight shooter. And in terms of his criticism, he doesn't mince words. And so, yeah, they covered Lost Boys way back when.
That's why I respect the horror fandom, because they don't give their genre a pass. They're not saying, "Oh, I love everything that comes out." So they have the things
Marvel
they think
fans.
are good. Well, they have the things they think are good, and they have the things they think are bad. But they stick with the genre.
Yeah,
and this is different from the superhero fans, because as long as the movies were good, the fans were there. And now that the movies are not as good, the fans have just said, "Oh, I'm not a fan of comic book movies at all anymore." Right? It's like there's a horror genre has less bandwagonness to it than some of the other genres, I think.
Yeah, less likely to have some sort of shared universe or franchise-ness to it. You get some of that, I suppose, but there's quite a few standalones, it seems.
There is. The fans will stick with the genre even during the slump, right? I mean, whereas with these Marvel movies, as we've seen with the last few that have come out in theaters, people just didn't show up.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of horror, I feel like there's a surprising connection between that and one thing I want to ask about, which is comedy, because in dramatic and even in action stories, that you're rarely subjected to, and maybe this is just me, you're rarely subjected to emotions that you have no control over. Whereas with horror, you're dealing with fear, and then with comedy, you're dealing with humor. And I find that to be one of the most interesting things. We have very little control over what we find funny, over what we laugh at. And so, a Christian hears a dirty joke, and despite their best judgment, they can't help but okay, that was really funny. One of the trickiest parts of being a parent is I can't laugh at my kid saying this thing because that'll encourage it. But then, dang it, that was hilarious. And so I was curious, with comedy, I'm wondering if that makes it, how that affects the process, I guess, of film criticism, because it's okay, I laughed a lot, but it was objectively a terrible movie. Any thoughts on that?
Hangover 2 for me, yeah.
I haven't wrestled with this question much because comedy has been in such a trough lately that I have not been confronted with the difficulty of untangling, hey, this
so
is really
made you laugh in a while is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, they just haven't
been great. I agree.
Well, they also just haven't made very many.
Yeah.
The number of comedies that have been made in the last 10 years is, it's non-existent compared to superhero movies, horror movies, even Christian movies, right? Yeah. Comedy it used to be one of the bread and butter genres of theaters in, 80s and 90s, totally disappeared. And I think part of that has to do with some of the shift to streaming. You can do some of the same things on a small screen with comedy. You don't need to spend quite as much money, and also if you're a comedy writer, you make more money if you can sell a TV series than sell a standalone movie. So I think there's an economic incentive that it's kind of depressed comedy in the theaters. But I do understand your question, because there's some the Deadpool movies. They are not, they're action, they're gory, they're comic book, but they're also really at their heart, they're comedies.
Yeah.
Kind of the gross out comedy.
What I was about to say is because of Marvel, particularly post Whedon, Marvel, it basically kind of took the place of our comedies, because a lot of them became a lot more funny, or at least inserted a lot more jokes.
Or attempted.
Attempted, or at least inserted, like I said, inserted a lot more attempts at humor. And so it's kind of it almost helped push comedy away, whereas people are laughing at these movies. Do we need a movie just for laughing? Nah.
And it's so easy to miss in comedy, right? Ask any comedian. you can bomb very easily with a story where you're not even reading the audience. I'm sure it's even harder.
No, I agree. Although I think Joss Whedon is probably better at the witty banter.
Yes.
Than people give him credit for. It's all the people who came after him trying to imitate him that started to kind of rub us the wrong way.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that assessment. Yeah. It's just he gets blamed. It's a lot of things. He gets blamed for a lot of stuff that's not actually him. It's his disciples.
But that's true. They're some the superhero movies, the Marvel superhero movies got funny. So there's comedic elements in a lot of stuff that is not necessarily straight up comedy.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually see it because I was busy the day that they gave the press screening and never got around to seeing it whenever it came out in theaters. But I have not seen the new Naked Gun movie.
Okay. I was gonna ask about that, but yeah.
I have heard from people I trust that it is actually really funny. Although when I saw the trailer, I thought to myself, this looks terrible.
I only laughed once during the trailer. Yeah.
But I have heard that the movie is actually really good. So I'm not going to testify that the movie is good. I'm just saying that I have heard secondhand that the movie is good. But it's a little bit of an anomaly to have a movie like that show up in theaters right now.
Yeah. So, and the streaming, I agree that it's easier to sell on a streaming platform. One movie that I actually really wanted to review on the podcast was Happy Gilmore 2, because I had the lowest expectations for it. And it turns out they should have been lower, but I wanted to review it. And so I asked all of our, guest hosts, our kind of, army of people that have on the podcast, if anyone saw it and is willing to review it. Nobody wanted to. And so I was like, all right, I guess this isn't going to happen. But the first Happy Gilmore, I think, is the funniest movie ever made. And the second one, oh man, it was rough. Like, part of it was serviceable. And I laughed a lot. This is the reason I asked this, is because I laughed a lot during Happy Gilmore 2. But it was not a great movie, not even a great comedy.
I think
tried so hard, and it could have gotten away with less. Yeah,
that goes back to what I was saying before. Like, if it's a good movie, it's going to both be competently executed and it's going to delight you. Okay, the movie delighted you at certain points, right? Yeah. But was it competently executed? No. So it kind of and I'm not ashamed to say that I enjoy some movies that fall into that category, right? There are movies that I like that are not necessarily great movies. Like, some people, whenever I write a review, they hear it on the podcast, they read it in the magazine, whatever. They write a letter in and they say, well, how could you have liked this thing? And oftentimes I have to write them back and be like, I didn't necessarily like it. I'm just saying it's pretty good movie.
Yeah.
Because, kind of my objective criteria and my fondness for something don't always overlap. Oftentimes they do, but they don't always overlap. So one of my favorite movies is the Ben Stiller comedy Mystery Men. Have you guys ever seen that?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So good.
I haven't thought of that in years. We need to do that.
Miles wants to cover that. We should have you on for that one. Yeah.
It is one of my favorite movies. I'm not sure that I can say it's an objectively good movie.
No.
But it is. But it
does
is
what it's trying to do.
But it is really funny.
It was
to me.
It's funny. It was a deconstruction of superhero films before superhero films even became like the dominant thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That movie didn't do very well at the box office. No. It probably would do a lot better if it actually came out today rather than 25 years ago.
Oh, please don't make a sequel to it. Please don't make a sequel to it.
No, it doesn't.
I beg of you. Yeah.
Well,
I don't want a Zoolander 2.
Pee Wee Herman is dead now, so I don't think you can do a sequel to it. But no, it's that's one of those movies that I point to and I'm like, I don't know that it was good, but it's one of my favorites. Another one like that is Robin Williams' Popeye. I'm like,
never saw that one. Never saw it.
I've seen parts of it.
That's one of my favorite movies. I'm not sure if it's actually good though. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to disentangle my nostalgia for it from the quality and the nostalgia that I feel for it. So
yeah, I feel like the same about the movie UHF, Weird Al's movie. Hilarious, makes me laugh every single time I think about it. Even, but yeah, is it good? I don't know. Probably not as good as I think it is because of the experience of watching it.
Well, it's like Kraft macaroni and cheese, right? Or I have had many friends ask me, well, how can you enjoy eating at McDonald's? I'm like, because I like it. I like McDonald's.
Yeah.
Do I think it's a good hamburger? Not necessarily, but I like the thing that they give me, right?
I like the diced onions.
If I was gonna rate this on a scale of best hamburgers, I would never rate it as a good hamburger, but I actually like going there and eating a quarter pounder. And I kind of feel like sometimes people looking from the outside in at criticism don't understand the distinction that can be made there, right?
Yeah.
That are when we're assessing the quality of something and thinking about our fondness for it, those are two totally different questions that are only kind of tangentially related to to one another.
Yeah. So as we move into starting to wrap up a little bit, we want to do a little bit of rapid fire with you. And so, David, I'm going to go a little bit out of order because I want to get to this first one, the most important one.
Yeah.
Is movie snacks and drinks. Is it ethical to sneak them in?
Only if you're under 16 years old.
Okay. All right.
There's an age of accountability, you're saying, to this one. Interesting. But do you have any go-tos? You spend a lot of time in the theater. I assume you're a popcorn guy. But do you have a go-to candy, or are you not a popcorn guy? Like, what's your go-to at the concession stand?
I go to the movies on average between once and twice a week, and I probably get a popcorn once or twice a year.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And I almost never get something to drink. And it all stems from the one time that I went to go see Captain America Winter Soldier and needed to use the bathroom so badly that I thought I was going to die, but I couldn't leave because I was like, we're now at the climax. And then the climax of the movie lasted for like 45 minutes, it seemed like. So that lesson was so painful for me that I refused to drink anything. In fact, whenever I went to go see Avatar last time, I was like, I'm going to intentionally dehydrate myself before Avatar: The Way of Water, because I have to.
There's a lot of.
I'm not going to be able to get through this 3.5 hour movie, if I've had anything to drink within the last 6 hours. So,
yeah, I think I may have done legitimate damage to my bladder when I saw The Return of the King. No regrets. No regrets. Eric, what was the next question we're doing in the rapid fire?
So films last year that were surprisingly good. Like ones that just were like, wow, I was not expecting that.
I thought Complete Unknown was, I really enjoyed A Complete Unknown. I thought some people complained that Bob Dylan's, Timothy Chalamet's portrayal of Bob Dylan was too inscrutable, but I'm like, that's who Bob Dylan is. He's inscrutable. And I was really impressed that he did his own singing for the movie. So I thought that was really good. I can't remember if this one came out earlier this year or if it was last year, but The Ballad of Wallace Island. Did y'all see that one?
I hadn't even heard of that. Yeah.
It was kind of a small movie. It's British. It's got a couple of, it's Tom Basden and I think his name's Tim Key, who are British comedians. They kind of put together this movie, and it's about a millionaire who lives on an island all by himself. He won the lottery, and he brings his favorite duo, folk duo, split up and hadn't talked to each other in years, and he brings them together to do a private concert just for him on his island.
I think I remember you reviewing this. Yes.
I did review it. I really liked that one. I really liked that one a lot.
Nice.
Trying to think about if there's anything else that really, it's so, there's just so much not things that,
I was about to say the flip side then is, how about biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointments would be, I think they might all be Disney movies. Moana 2, Mufasa, the Snow White movie, Elio, Captain America, the New World Order.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
I felt like all of those could have been something, and it's like they didn't even try. So I think that was why I was so disappointed in those movies. They each had promise, and for whatever production reasons, I think, well, for Moana 2, they took a TV series and they turned it into a movie, and cutting corners like that, not coming up with a fresh script, just kind of recycling what they had already planned out for the TV series, I felt like really harmed the overall quality of the film. Yeah. But so those were all my disappointments.
So with on that, with those disappointments, as a professional film reviewer, how do you manage burnout?
Part of it is the secret to low expectations. The lower your expectations going in to see something, the more likely you're going to be okay when you exit the theater. So for Snow White, with all the hype around it, my expectations were suitably low. I was still disappointed, but it was not as much as I thought going in thinking, hey, they're going to knock it out of the park with this one. So you got to keep your expectations relatively low. I also, to be a critic and survive, you have to enjoy watching things that you know you're going to hate. You have to be the kind of person who hate watches things.
Yeah.
You're excited to go to the theater because you think, oh, this is going to be bad. There have been times where I have walked into the theater excited because I'm like, let's see how bad this can be.
Yeah.
And I think those are probably the two ways to avoid burnout.
It reminds me a little bit of
fan, or a NASCAR fan. It's like, I want to see them succeed, but if they don't, it's okay.
Yeah, but it reminds me a little bit of Ego from Ratatouille, where it's like, for someone who loves food so much, how come you're so skinny? It's like, I don't. It's like, no, for someone who likes food, it's like, I don't like food, I love it. If I don't love it, I don't swallow. I think that's I use that all the time. I love that as an analogy.
I think that's actually a good analogy because, well, I forgot what I was going to say now.
What's the difference between liking and loving it? Like the fat guy who likes food eats everything, and the one who loves food is like, no, I'm not going to put that in my mouth.
Well, and so I've had people complain to me. So this is what I was going to say. I've had people write to me, and actually, I think it might have been David wrote to me and said,
I was hoping this wasn't going to come up. Okay.
You give a lot of negative reviews. And I'm like, well, that's because I really like movies, I love going to the theater. I love seeing movies. And I think that is what leads me to sometimes be a little bit on the more critical side whenever it comes to what I'm seeing. So,
yeah. That was a great back and forth we had through email there. I was like, this may say more about me than it does about you. This is something I'm noticing.
But also, probably the biggest disappointment that I had through all last year was Mission Impossible, or was, I guess, this summer.
Yeah.
The latest Mission Impossible movie. That's one of my favorite franchises, and I felt like the latest movie just totally dropped the ball.
You're almost like, I know we're done, but I'd like one more to redeem it all. You can't end.
I would definitely
can't end on Mission Impossible 2, although it can't possibly be that bad. It can't possibly be as bad as MI2.
I definitely would take another Mission Impossible just to get it right.
Yep.
Get the taste out of your mouth. I'm sure in 10 years they'll reboot it with who's the guy? Glen, Powell, or somebody like that. They'll bring it back with somebody. Yeah.
I should have worn it today. I have a Glen Powell t-shirt that Netflix sent me last year. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Just his face on the whole thing?
It's actually got like 5 pictures of his face on it. I don't know.
That sounds like an amazing shirt.
It is. My wife won't let me wear it out of the house. You remember those 3 Wolf Moon t-shirts from the 90s?
I thought those were awesome as a kid.
Yeah, this is like a 5 Glen Powell. That's kind of the premise.
Can you send us a picture of that? I'd love to include. I'd love to include that in this segment and just show the picture.
That's the thumbnail too, by the way.
Yes,
picture.
Yeah.
I will send you a picture of 5 Glen Powell. So it might be 6 Glen. I'm not sure. I have to go count them.
There's probably a hidden one somewhere. Yeah, you have to find it.
That's incredible.
What a good note to end on, too.
I know. I was about to say that is awesome.
There's so many other things we could have talked about. I was really eager to talk Christian films a little bit because mostly we don't tread those waters here. It's generally something that we try and stay out of. But yeah, maybe we'll have you on another time to.
We'll do the Mission Impossible treatment. We'll just keep going until we're like, we're kind of done.
We'll go until we get a really disappointing episode out of you, and then we'll retire it.
Appreciate it.
This has been thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on a second time. You're the first repeat in the lobby guest, so thank you.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a badge of honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Send me the patch and I'll put it on the Glen Powell t-shirts.
Yes. Yeah. There we go.
Absolutely.
We need to make one once we see the design. We need to make one like that of our lead hosts. I think, the Howling at the Moon one. Look in the merch store, people. It'll be there eventually. So excellent. Well, we should wrap it up. I know we're out of time. Collin Garbarino, thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find more of what you do?
Just go to the World Magazine website. So it's WNG.org. That's World News Group. So WNG.org, and all of our content's there. The podcast is on the website, The World and Everything in It. Links to our movie reviews, got the book reviews, got music reviews. We've got all kinds of culture content that people might be interested in.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, regular episodes weekly and in the lobby episodes once a month. And consider supporting us on Patreon. Do the, rate and review thing. That's a free way to help us out here at the podcast that helps boost us in the algos, as I'm going to start calling them. And in the meantime, keep engaging media from a godly worldview. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
Thank you for joining us in the lobby for this discussion. To hear the rest of the conversation and for other content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to share with others. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. Donating at least $1 a month lets you vote on future episodes and get special access and bonus content. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.